Alright guys, let's talk spoilers for Wonder Woman. This video is going to be short because there are barely any spoilers for Wonder Woman. Okay, so let's get some stuff out of the way first. I really liked the villains in this movie. I could not talk very much about the villains of the movie without really giving away spoilers. So firstly, Dr. Poison is in the movie, a character that I never heard of before the first trailer for the movie when everyone was theorizing that the one chick with the weird like plating on her face was Dr. Poison. And I was like, yeah, she's probably Dr. Poison. I don't know much about Dr. Poison. I started kind of learning more about Dr. Poison. I still don't know very much about Dr. Poison. I'm gonna stop saying Dr. Poison. I liked the character in the movie. I didn't think she had the most interesting parts. I didn't think she was the most interesting character, but I thought she was cool. I definitely thought she was an interesting villain, and I just wish we had gotten to know more about her because the villains in the movie kind of take a back seat to the whole story with Diana and Steve Trevor and their whole little group of misfits going to find Ares. So everything else kind of takes a back seat to that story. But I was very satisfied with what we did get of the secondary villains of the movie, which are Dr. Poison and Ludendorff, played by Danny Houston. Ludendorff is an incredibly intriguing character because you spend the whole movie thinking that he is Ares. And then Diana is convinced that he's Ares. And then you're convinced that he's Ares. But then, plot twist, he dies. He is killed by Diana, but he just kind of dies. And then you find out he's not Ares. More on that later. I liked Danny Houston in the movie. His accent kind of threw me off a little bit, but that's not because it was bad. It was just because I am used to him having an American accent in the movies I've seen him in. So the German accent did kind of throw me off a little bit, but I thought it was a very good accent, and I liked him in the movie a lot. I will say, kind of some lazy storytelling here. He takes this smoke dust thing that makes his face like glow and stuff, and it makes him like super strong and evil and weird. They never really explain what it is in the movie. I mean, I'm guessing it has something to do with like Ares or something, or maybe it's a gas that Dr. Poison developed or something. I don't know. They don't really explain it in the movie, but it's cool. It makes him a physical match for Diana for the one fight scene they have together. And they really do try and set up that he is Ares. And it was good because I had the movie spoiled for me before I saw it, but I didn't really care because I wasn't expecting there to be much spoilers anyways. All the things that were spoiled for me were things I was already predicting would happen, like Steve Trevor dying. I was expecting that because one way or another, whether it's because he sacrifices himself or something bad happens or just old age, because this movie is set like 100 years ago. World War I was, I think, like 100 years ago, at least. He's probably dead of natural causes at this point. Either way, whether he sacrifices himself and dies or he just lives a natural life, he's dead in the present day of Justice League and Batman v Superman either way. So I was kind of guessing he was going to die because they wouldn't just take a character like that and not have take a character who, if he just lives, he's going the rest of this whole time being kind of useless, unless they make a Steve Trevor movie, which would actually be kind of cool if it was like a war film set during World War II. It's like 20 years later. He doesn't know where Diana went off to, and he's got to get his whole group back together to do some World War II stuff. But that wouldn't really be a great movie for DC to make, though, because that would be a movie not about superheroes, and it would just be basically a spy thriller set during World War II, and they could probably just make that. Like, Warner Brothers could just make that a movie. I mean, it would probably get more money if it has the DC brand recognition and the star power of Chris Pine. But either way, his death made sense for me. I'm pitching the Steve Trevor movie here, and he's just to go back to the fact that, oh yeah, he's dead. So, no. But his death was really good in the movie. I actually felt something when he died because he's he's in the movie from the beginning. Like at least 15-20 minutes in is when his character is introduced. I wasn't like really keeping track of how long we were into the movie, but he gets introduced like during the first act. They go through this whole montage of her as a kid, and then training, and then to being an adult, and like right after that whole montage is over, it's Steve Trevor is introduced, and then the movie really does kind of kickstart within the first like 45 minutes of the movie is when it really does kickstart. But that being said, it was interesting to see the whole origin story with her as a kid. I will say some of the green screen was not that good in the scenes with her as a kid, and her kid actor was not very good at all. But everyone else that was acting around her was really good, which kind of makes it stick out a little bit more when she's not that good. But I don't really get surprised by that anymore because kid actors in movies just aren't that good sometimes. So I didn't really think much of it, and I didn't let it drag I didn't let it drag the movie down for me. So, I guess, what else is there to talk about? But so you really do get to know Steve Trevor very well through the whole movie, and some of the other supporting characters too. There are some pretty funny moments with these characters. There's this Scottish guy. He had some pretty funny moments. There's this other, I forgot the name of the dude, but he wore a fez, so that was cool because fezzes are cool. If you got that reference, let me know in the comments. And then there was this Native American guy, and they had this whole little ragtag Rogue One style group, Howling Commandos type thing going on. And they had some pretty compelling characters. They didn't like force their character, like their backstories down your throat. You kind of learned more about them as they went on, but you still didn't know everything about them. And it's a great way to get more character exposition in when you have a character like Diana who doesn't know much about the human world. So, and she doesn't know these people, so she's being introduced to all these things, and that is always, in my opinion, the greatest way to do exposition is by putting in a character who does not know anything about the situation, so then you can have the characters explaining to this unknowing character what's going on, and that way it's telling the audience what's going on, and I think that's a really good way to do exposition. And this movie does exposition really well because you have Diana, who is this character who has lived her whole life on this island of Themyscira, with all women, and they're all Amazons, and she's just been training to be the best fighter warrior in the entire island. And so when Steve Trevor crashes his plane and shows up, and then takes her to the human world, we get a lot of scenes of her just learning about the human world in the World War II era in London, and it's really good. There's one scene where she tries ice cream for the first time, and it's actually a pretty funny scene. And that's what this movie does really well, is the humor. Chris Pine gets most of it, honestly. He gets the most humor, and I think that's fitting because just as much as you have the character Diana learning about the human world, you have Chris Pine, who is the person we relate to because he's just a normal dude. And he's learning about Wonder Woman and Themyscira and the Amazons, and he just has the best reactions to things, and it's pretty funny. Like the scene where Diana explains to him that she was brought to life after being sculpted out of clay, and then he's just like, well, that's neat. And so it's just stuff like that, and he gets quite a few laughs in the movie. But so you're growing with him and Diana through the movie, so when he sacrifices himself to stop this poison from being spread, it's a really fitting end, and it does hit you. Something else, Dr. Poison survives. She can come back. She needs to come back. They need to find some way to bring Dr. Poison back. Whether it's like flashbacks, like maybe in like the next movie after Justice League, introduce a new Dr. Poison and then show flashbacks of this new Dr. Poison being trained by the old Dr. Poison. I think that would be a really cool way to use the character because, you know, there's not really a great way to do it because, again, this movie is set like 100 years ago, guys. So there's not really a great way to do it, but I think that would be a great way, and they could easily do it because I always love when they leave villain characters alive because it means there's potential to use the character for something big in the future. But let's talk about the thing that everyone wants me to talk about that I have been specifically avoiding. Ares. Okay. Let's talk about Ares, guys. Lupin from Harry Potter is in this movie. And I already had it spoiled for me that he was going to be Ares and that it wasn't Danny Houston. But even then, throughout the whole movie, I was like, no, he's not. Like, I knew it was true, but at the same time, he was just... The way his character was, you were like, no, he can't be Ares. And so when she kills Ludendorff with the God Killer sword, and then she goes to this she goes back down to the watchtower, and and inside the watchtower is Lupin from Harry Potter, and then he starts talking to her, and then as she realizes it, the audience realizes that he is actually Ares. And then they battle, and it's mostly like the battle is mostly with him just looking like a normal human. About like maybe halfway into the final battle is when he starts to get like the armor and stuff and actually look like Ares as Ares looks in the comics. I mean, it's not 100% like the comics, but more like the comics. I will say, I didn't love the look. It wasn't the armor that I had a problem with. It wasn't even like his look in human form that I had a problem with. He looked good in human form. He was actually really menacing and really creepy in his human form because he's just not reacting to anything. He's just talking, and he's like explaining everything to Diana, and he's just in this human form, and it's really creepy and weird. And then he starts to get the armor, and you can still see his face underneath, and he's got this big mustache. And it does not look the greatest. It does kind of look a little ridiculous with like the mustache going on. And then he's got like this Greek armor on, and then he's just got like a early 1900s mustache. It didn't quite fit with the look. I wish they had gone with the look that they went with for like the toys and stuff. Where like if you look at the picture of Ares in the Lego set and on like the action figure, the like DC multiverse Build-A-Figure thing, they don't actually show his face underneath his like armor and stuff. They show like the armor, and then he's got like the helmet on, and the helmet actually in the toys isn't very accurate to his helmet in the movie, I will say that. But on his helmet, or underneath, all you see is just black and then red eyes, and I think that's how he looks in the comics as well. I wish they had just done that instead, because now whenever I think Ares, I'm gonna think, yeah, pretty great menacing villain, but kind of ridiculous looking. But yeah, I thought Ares is the best villain that DC has given us so far, because he takes kind of the best thing from each villain. You have the... So you have where General Zod was very menacing, and then Lex Luthor was very cold and calculated. So you have kind of the best of both of them combined into this one character, and it makes Ares really just the best villain we've gotten so far from the DC Extended Universe. Haven't seen Justice League yet. Justice League is not out yet, so I can't say much about Steppenwolf or possibly Darkseid. But I will say, so far, you know, Ares is the best DC villain, which sucks because, as far as I know, he's dead at the end of Wonder Woman, which means that all of the gods are dead, all of the Greek gods, because you find out that at the beginning that Ares betrayed all the gods and killed all of them, and Zeus's dying action was bringing Diana to life, because you find out that the sword, the god killer sword, isn't actually the god killer, because Diana's mom is telling her in the story that Zeus gifted the Amazons with a weapon that would be able to kill a god. And she leads her to think that it's the sword, the god killer. But it's actually her. So that was a pretty cool plot twist as well. I was not actually expecting that. I did not know about that one. So that actually was a pretty cool surprise. But yeah, that's really all I have to talk about in terms of spoilers. This video is actually a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. But yeah, I really did thoroughly enjoy Wonder Woman. I think it is not the best movie that's come out this year. Logan is still winning.